Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. I am Jeremy, your host. I am here today with my co-host, Mr. Reno,
How's it going?
and we have a guest today who you've actually interviewed in the past, which is kind of like full circle, which is kind of neat. Mr. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for
Good.
having me.
Hey, no, we listen, man. I'm sorry it's been a whirlwind trying to get you on here. We tried to do it in person when we were in St.
Oh
Louis.
yeah.
It's been tough, and you were on our list when we started this back in December. It was like, hey, who do we want to bring on, tell their story, because of the past interview you had done with Reno was so good. It got a lot of traction, especially because did it get into military times? I can't remember.
It got into military times. The actually, believe it or not, one of the vice presidents of I forget, it was like the nutrition council of underneath the president
Oh
actually
yeah,
saw it on LinkedIn and
yeah, that was
shared
the
it.
message. It was I can't think of his name, but it's basically the advisor to the president for all of health and fitness across the U.S. He's the one that presented it to the president.
Yep. And then what drove me like nuts was you can Google my name and it shows up on like Fox News Phoenix, Fox News Chicago, and all these like news outlets posting. And I even found out I'm a meme because it goes, man loses 200 pounds to still be stupidly enough to join the military. And I was like, well, I'm a meme.
I never saw the meme,
Yeah,
so
I'll send it to you later,
okay.
Jeremy.
Yeah, we'll have to post that with the podcast. But I mean, I guess that's the intro right there. 200 pounds down, didn't join the military. You did go in the reserve, so I'm a little disappointed. Me and Reno there. We wanted you in the
Hey,
guard.
6 years from now, if I don't like the reserves, I can always switch over to the guard.
There you go. Do what you signed up for, and then make a lateral change.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that's what. Hey, for the listeners, that's what we're going to talk about today. Is how do you get started, to lose 200 pounds, because I think, and this is just a little bit off the soapbox, in my opinion, but I don't think a lot of coaches and people out there realize like how hard it is when someone's 200 pounds overweight to just decide to make a change, right? To have the courage to get up and work out and start it, right? And continue doing it. Like, I don't think people realize how hard that is.
Yep. It was um it was definitely one of those things of I I mean, I stepped on the scale, saw the weight, and I was like, I'm gonna have to change something or I'd be going down a deep rabbit hole of who knows where I'd be now. Um, but it was one of those things, it's kind of like the old snowball effect. Once you get going, it just becomes second nature.
Yeah. In all transparency, like, I didn't start your snowball, right? So,
Yeah.
just letting everybody know, like, Aaron and I did not work together at the beginning of his journey. He was actually, kind of in the first form ecosystem. I think you ran into Will at like a CrossFit competition where you just kind of told him, like, I'm going to lose, X amount of weight, right?
Yep.
And I think that's kind of how you guys, developed a little bit of relationship. And and then as you got going and was going to get involved with the first form app, Will was like, hey, go work with Jeremy. And that's kind of how, you and I got to meet each other originally, and how I got
Mhm.
to help along this journey. And I remember you
It
sharing
w-
with me at headquarters about, the dream and the passion of wanting to join the military. And, for me, a lot of people know my story. It happened late. I got to know the Sergeant Major, now retired Sergeant Major Jim Allen of West Virginia. Got to know him good with the wellness program that we developed in West Virginia. I was a civilian, and he was the one that really pushed me, talked me into join. Right, so I commissioned him late, as a dietitian, and kind of your same boat. Like, was close to the same age, and it was a good relation. Like, I could feel, that I kind of been there in your shoes in that degree, and wanted that for you, right?
Yep.
So that's a little bit of for the listeners, a little bit of a background on how I got started with you, in that process. And now, yeah, you're down 200 pounds, you're maintaining it, training for high rocks. Am I saying it right?
High Rocks, Dallas.
Yeah,
Um, to I guess I've always wanted to try High Rocks, and I've seen like some of the first form people do it, and of course Mason and um, Josh Ward both went to Worlds in in France, and it was one of those things. I had a couple friends that out of locally decided to do Dallas, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. And here I am now, 5 days into training for it, and it's a different beast. It's a lot of engine. Of course, I do have a good engine and stuff like that, but it's one of those I'm having to I'm having to do a lot of like movements that I haven't done in the past, like what or I haven't done in a while, which are like wall balls and rowing and stuff like that. So it's diving back kind of into that CrossFit esque type workouts.
Wait till you get to
Listen,
that 50-meter lunge.
yeah, definitely outside of my domain. Give me the 90 seconds, hard effort 90 seconds. I'm there, right? So, all right, well, let's get into kind of the history of the story. Reno, I think I want you to drop forward today with some of the questions, since you're familiar with the interview you guys did. And like I said, I want to keep kind of not things the same, but kind of that same Q&A that you guys did to tell his story.
Okay, I would love to hear it again. Kind of what was your why to get started? I know it's all over your social media, but before Jeremy, before all of this, what was like you said you stepped on the scale. What was your like, oh shit, this needs to change?
So I'll before the oh shit moment, I'll just dive back to it was 2018. I lost my mother who was overweight and had congestive heart failure and pulmonary hypertension. April April 2018. 2018 I lost her and kind of went into like a deep spiral of just like kind of a little depression and kind of not going too deep off the rails. And then it was around end of October and beginning November, I tore my right shoulder, and I was like, well, here we go again, and kind of went back down that same spiral. And I'll be truthful to people. My go-to comfort food at that point were Little Caesars pizzas. I ate one of those every night, and I still worked out kind of not how I used to, but would go in, ride the bike for a little bit, and then 2019's it was around June, May, June, I stepped on the scale and I saw 400 pounds. And I basically that was my oh shit moment. I was like, I got to basically do something or I was going to end up like my mom. I was gonna die at an early age, and it was one of those things of well, it was time to take back my life or basically roll over. And I had a good friend. I've had a good friend at that time who's actually with 20th Special Forces Group, who kind of got me got me going in the right direction. His name's Tim, actually still with 20th Group, who just thought about retiring but staying in. And if you hear a child crying, that's my son over there who's I think he's done eating, but I don't know.
So it's his,
But
it's his first podcast, right?
yeah,
He's on here. Yes.
yeah. So at that point, he was like, all right, so we're gonna start running and doing X, Y, and Z. And he he's kind of been there through my whole journey. And when we're linked up with Jeremy, I kind of had like the two dads. I had Jeremy and I had my buddy Tim, who both of y'all are nutritionists, and y'all kind of I had able to bounce ideas off of one another and stuff like that. So it was I started off and I think I lost 40 pounds in the beginning, and then COVID happened and all the gyms shut down. And at that point, I kind of went kind of stagnant a little bit, but never gained any weight. And it was like one of those things of we're going to we're going to kick it in high gear, and that's kind of where um, Will I reached out to Will and stuff, saw Will, and I was like, hey, I'm shooting for 100 pounds. And that's when he reached out to me and was like, when you lose 100 pounds, kind of link up with me and we'll go from there. And it was just like one of those like goals of I'm gonna lose 100 pounds, we'll do this. And then it was like next thing you know, it was that snowball effect. And it was like I lost it I lost it correctly because it was like 1 or 2 pounds a week, and been able to keep it off. And actually, to this point, I've actually put on around, I've put back on around 20 to 27 pounds, but it's muscle. And now I'm starting to, like I told you the other day, Jeremy, I kind of am in that like taper phase of losing weight for my competition coming up.
Yeah. Well, I think your three things I'll pull out of that, is most people they change for pain or pleasure, right?
Hmm.
And as bad as this sounds, like, losing your mom wasn't enough pain, right? Like right out of the gate. It was later on when you really started connecting the dots, like, hey, if I don't do something, I'm going to end up in the same space or the same, I'm not going to be here for my future kids, right?
Hmm.
And I say that, we can hear the little guy in the background, right? But when you first got started journey, he wasn't here, right? So
Yeah.
I say future kids, now that can be, your big why is him, right? um so I always like to point that out is like it is pain or pleasure. That's why we change, right, as human beings. The other thing is 1 to 2 pounds a week, guys. Like that is a good weight loss. It could be a little bit higher than that, and I'm sure Aaron's, when he had 200 pounds to lose, could be, at a higher rate. And I want people to understand that when you got 200 pounds to lose, you can lose 3 pounds, 4 pounds a week, right? That is okay. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not safe. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. When you hear people say losing greater than 1 to 2 pounds a week is not sustainable, it's generally because the habits that someone's doing to lose faster is not sustainable, right? So I want to point that out, because we hear that a lot. And then last but not least, we all are going to rebound a little bit, right? So when you're on your wellness journey, you have a goal weight or you have a body fat composition weight that you're trying to get to, you're going to rebound a little bit. The key is not to rebound a lot,
Yep.
right? So always keep that in mind, guys, when you're going along your journey. So I love that once again. And I love this flow, guys. Like, you talked about the story, and I'm just going to pick some things out and highlight as we roll. So,
What? So now you're at the point where you lost your 100 pounds. You linked up with Will. Obviously you got connected with Jeremy and all that stuff. What was the next um, key either uh, milestone to reach, or what was the whole step process working with Jeremy to get to not necessarily where you are now, but like your next milestone? Just leave it at that. Yeah.
M- My so when I my next milestone after losing 100 pounds was kind of like one of those was all right. So I lost 100 pounds. So now we're gonna lose 150 and stuff like that. And it was one of those things of, and I had a little incentive from Will when that happened was he goes, all right, you lost 100 pounds, and he was like, send me your address, and he kind of hooked me up with some couple t-shirts and shorts here and there, and it was kind of like an awesome job. And then when I started working with Jeremy was I was kind of taught in the beginning of I had to like burn 500 calories in the gym, I had this certain amount of calories to eat through the day. And if I didn't work out that day, I basically subtracted those 500 calories off of what I was supposed to eat that day. So I was taught about the macro counting and all that stuff. And then I guess it was after the 100 pounds, and I kind of uh, was talking to Will and kind of got into the app and started diving a little bit more into it with you, Jeremy, and stuff like that. Is I was learning more about the protein aspect of it, and that's where it kind of helped a little bit more because I knew about I I lost the 100 pounds plus, but didn't know like the protein aspect of it.
Well, and I think that's important for the listeners to understand. Like, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can have success, right? And we have to understand that. Like if I come in and just said, "All right, Aaron, you're doing everything wrong," then our relationship wouldn't have been good. You'd been looking at, what do you mean, Jeremy? I've lost
Yeah.
100 pounds. What do you mean I'm doing things wrong, right? So people have to understand, that you have to know your audience. You have to know how to talk to people, But that is a thing that I find a lot when I have people who are having success in their weight loss journey and they come over to me. A lot of it is just that calories in versus calories out that's been talked, right? Or taught and people know about. But yeah, that optimal protein is so important to make sure that we're
Hmm.
not only preserving muscle tissue, but we're gaining some, muscle tissue and we're recovering, as we're going along this journey. And I love the fact that, you brought up what you said, like, even though your why hadn't changed much from when you began, you kept kind of pushing the goalpost out, right? So down 100 pounds. Okay, now I'm going to shoot for down 50, right? And then down 200. Like I love that, right? And it's not that you're chasing like unexpected goals. It was just you
Yeah.
were, as we say, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yep.
So you were focused on, that weight loss, increments at a time, and that's how you achieved, that big mark of losing 200 pounds.
And it was kind of at the also at the 100 pound mark was a buddy of mine who's first lieutenant in the Arkansas National Guard. Kind of he kind of surprised me and was like, "Hey, I joined I joined the National Guard," and that kind of sparked uh my my extra um kind of that why I wanted to do it even more of okay, I'm down 100 pounds. Now let's throw in I'm chasing this goal that has always been my goal. And I even got told asked it in basic training and all that stuff. They're like, "You're 35 years old, 36 years old. Why'd you do this?" And I jokingly with them, I was like, "It's a midlife crisis. People buy cars. I decided to join the military." But no, my big reason why of always wanted to do the military was and is still I was in ninth grade science class, 9/11 happened, and just having something like that in my life impact, it was kind of like one of those things of it always drove, it always kind of stayed in the back of my head.
Well, and I think too, and this is just my personal opinion, that's one of the reasons that your rebound, hasn't been that much, right?
Yep.
Because your end goal of me wanting to achieve, a certain amount of weight loss came with you wanting to join the military too, right? And that all happened around the same time. So it was like that was a big reason of why you wanted to reach a certain goal and weight, not necessarily just the weight. And I really think that that's the reason you've been able to maintain it. Outside of yes, like you're still doing the habits, you're still doing the stuff that you need to do, but I think that plays along with it. So it kind of combines into that why again. So yes,
Hmm.
you're wanting to lead by being, a good father and a good dad and a good husband, but also now a good partner inside of, teammate inside the military. And I think that's
Hmm.
important, right? And don't get me wrong, guys, like I understand, like, hey, I've always said you want to know the good and bad of anything, do it. Right. So,
Yep.
kind of joking to your meme, I've got it. People are like, oh, he lost 200 pounds just to join and still join the military. Hey, I understand it's not, roses for everybody, but I think that plays a big role in why you're still having great success.
Oh yeah.
And I want to kind of just toss this out there. So we actually did our first uh, interview. This is a little over a year ago, a year and a half ago now. when I interviewed you to write a little story for when me and Jeremy were doing Kentucky H2F orders. And I'm looking at Fox Chicago picked it up, Fox Houston picked it up, Military Times, and then it also reached the top 15 stories at the Pentagon. So that means every day, every week, they announce the top 15 stories across different domains. And in the Homeland side of the house, Aaron's story made it into the top 15 stories. So it was read aloud there at the Pentagon for everyone to see, hear, and talk about. To including what we mentioned earlier, it was actually advice to the president, his story, and I believe at the time that would have been um, yeah, President Biden. So his direct advisor for that. So not only were you trying to get into the military, but now that I mean, you were at basic training when I think I finished the story.
Hmm.
You were already making an impact in the military. I mean, we're talking hours into joining or into
Oh yeah.
leaving. So was that an added not pressure on your back, but like just kind of like a
Well, it
weight
was
of doing more?
yes, because when I got to Leonardwood, a couple of the drill sergeants actually knew who I was coming in
Sorry.
there. It's
Was
fine.
that was
It's
that
fine.
good or bad?
Well, you know how they say you got to try to fly under the radar. Well, that radar was nowhere near, and it
Show
was
up with
one of those things of I kind of told my story to some of the drill sergeants, and actually I have to reach out to two of my drill sergeants because they realized um, halfway into, I think it was it was AIT part. One of them looked at me and goes, "Do you work for a company that sells supplements?" And I looked at him. I said, "Yeah." And so I gotta hook him up with some first form products. Yeah. So it's one of those I wasn't able to reach out to him until after 6 months and stuff, but it was one of those things of I got there, they knew who I was, so it was I had to kind of live up to that. Okay, he's a fit guy. I don't need to show them that I'm weak. I mean, my ACF score wasn't that high. Well, it was over 5, I think 515, 520, but it was one of those things of I actually during the run, I helped 7 of my um 7 of my guys like take their runs from 20 minutes to 16 minutes and stuff like that and help them. Like we got to a point where we could lift our own weights and stuff like that, and I'd help them with training and stuff like that. So it was one of those things of I was able to help other soldiers in my unit.
Yeah, and I think that comes, I've always said this when it just doesn't matter whether it's soldiers or not, but we should all train ourselves to be more resilient, efficient and smarter, right?
Hmm.
And that's what you did for yourself, and then that's what you started doing for your fellow, soldiers. So I think that's awesome to see that you're continuing not only your health and wellness journey, but you're sharing that with others and making changes in other people's lives, which is awesome to see.
To a point now, I think I've told Jeremy this, but I haven't told Reno this. But to a point now, to where in my unit, I'm I've been I've been questioned by 6 or 7 people in my unit of helping them either put on muscle, lose weight, or helping them with their nutrition. So it's one of those things of I even talked with my NCOs. We don't have anybody in our unit that is master fitness trained. So it's one of those things I kind of told them when I get to that NCO point and there's room, I would like to go to master fitness trainer.
There's room for you if there's no one in the slot.
Yep.
And that's at the battalion level. So I don't know what level you're at company wise, but um, MFTs are at the battalion level. So then you get to immediately impact and help people at like 200 to 300 people. So
Yep.
That's awesome. And
H2FI now, not Master Fitness Trainer. Just
sorry,
yeah,
you just got to
making those
fine tune it,
changes inside the
which
military. So
actually now becomes it's an ASI. So now that is your newly awarded position. So I know you're a 13 series or not 13 series. You're a
12 series.
12 series. So then you would become, you'd still maintain that MOS, but then now you are in the H2F realm. So that is your military role, which is
Okay.
awesome. And I have the story here pulled up, but this was a little bit ago. But after more than a year of hard work, you lost 200 pounds. What are we at? I know you've gained a little bit of weight, but like, what's your timeline from start to call it now? From that 2018 to now? 2019 is it?
So mid 2019 um to about 4.5 years, it was I got to around 210. My lowest I got was 193. I lost a total of 207 pounds. And at that point, I just looked, I liked my physique at 193, but I was way too skinny for my skeletal frame. I was, so at that point, I started to put on muscle and put on a little bit more weight back. And I'm now around, I'm sitting around 224, 227 and stuff like that. So it's one of those things is I talked to um I believe I talked to you, Jeremy, and I talked to my other friend Tim, and they were like, you found your happy weight where you can still do everything physically and stuff, but you found a weight you can like maintain and just keep keep doing everything and stuff.
Yeah. And I bring that
and
up just because
I
of the
sorry, I
fact
think
that
it's common in big weight loss, right? People get down to a weight and they realize like, man, I really don't look good at this weight, right? And I would argue, Aaron, like, if I had you in the very beginning, like I think we could have preserved some of the muscle tissue you had.
Hmm.
I guarantee, you probably lost a little bit of muscle tissue just in the beginning, right? Just, not consuming enough protein and cutting the calories. But that's all part of the journey, right?
Oh yeah.
So, when people are out there and you lose, 60, 100, 200 pounds, and a lot of you guys and gals will get to the point you're like, man, I feel like I should look a little different or something like that. That may take time. So this journey for a lot of people, one, I would say is always a journey, right? But, just because you reached your goal weight, we're not done, right? As
No.
Kobe Bryant says, job not done, right? We still
Nope.
got work to do.
It's I tell people job's never done because it's basically it's it has turned into a lifestyle. It's one of those we we teach people that even though you've lost 100, 200, or 50, 40 pounds, it's one of those things of you have to learn to live live that way and keep it off. Don't regain everything back. And it's just one of those things is if I've learned to basically live this way now. It's one of those things of I'm not mad I put on weight and put on muscle and stuff like that. I knew it was gonna happen, but it's one of those things is I didn't go and put on 50 to 100 to 200 pounds back on. It's not one of those, oh, I did it in the past. I lost back in like 2010, I lost 70 pounds. And next thing I know is I gained it back and I gained 10, 20 pounds more of that back.
yeah, and I would just say that it's definitely um and every person we have had on here that has extreme weight loss has said it's like look it's not a monthly thing, it's not first form challenge thing, it's you actually had your big step forward, which can be a challenge, which can be life instances, can be basic training or whatever your goal is. But then it turns into 4 years and you're still on the right track. You're still doing the right thing, which so I love seeing it. And every single person has said the exact same thing that has had extreme weight loss. So
Oh yeah.
that's the awesome common theme that I've been seeing.
I I'll take it this way. So when I finally got to meet Jeremy in person, was I stepped on the scale and I actually that was when I lost 200 pounds. I weighed myself before I flew up to St. Louis to to the first form HQ, and I met Andy that weekend, and he looked me straight in the face, and he goes, "You're the guy that lost 200 pounds," and I was like, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Lift up your shirt," and I was like, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Oh, you don't have surgery to have that skin removed?" And he goes, "I wouldn't. I'd keep that as a badge of honor." So it's one of those things of it's just the the badge of honor, all the hard work that I put in.
Well, and yeah, and listen, my opinion on that for people is like, if it's causing medical issues, right? Chafing or blisters, 100%. But if not, like you said, hey, it's part of it, right? Like
Yep.
it's no different than other scars from stuff. It's quote unquote battle wounds or whatever terminology you want to use on it. And you both hit this, and I just want to make sure this knowledge and people think of this. Yes, we talk a lot about the program, first form challenges, the app, because that's what I do. That's my job, right? We have 4 challenges a year. My education kind of goes like a class, in the format of like when a challenge drops, I start doing the basic education. It gets a little bit more quote unquote complicated or next level as we go along. And then we rinse and repeat. That's just the way it is. But this is a lifestyle, right? And people got to continue doing it for the rest of their life. Like you want wellness, you got to continue putting in. You got to continue doing the things that evolve, around eating healthy, making right choices when it comes to movement, sleep, that type of stuff. So,
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, my final question is, what's next? I know you mentioned high rocks, but all this weight down, all these goals in the future, but what's next?
Well, I kind of also mentioned the I want to I want to become a good NCO in my career, and I want to become one of those NCOs that when their soldiers need help, I'll be there to help them and stuff. So I try to I I give motivation as a younger enlistee. Like I'll post in our little text group, "Hey, I just ran 4 miles," and they're like, you're too hoo for us. We're this and this and this," and I'm like, "Man, you got to realize, yeah, we only go 1 week in a month, but you never know. We're being reserves your federal, so you never know when you're gonna get that phone call of, hey, we got to go somewhere in this." So it's one of those things. Is I try to keep people up to standards, and it's one of those. I want to do that through my whole career, and then um, I guess in the future, um, it's a it's a 300-yard target, but I want to work remotely for first form.
love it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think, we said this earlier about, changes, when you want to change habits, you find people and you surround yourself with people that those things are normal, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's important. Like inside the military, and we get the same thing. It's like hey, it's only one weekend. It was like it's a work day, right?
Yeah.
And part of that work day in that profession should be physical fitness,
Yep.
right? So it doesn't mean we have to go run every single drill, but like we should be active every single drill. Yes, it's just 2 days, but it's a habit, right? Like so that's my opinion on that. And man, I'm so glad we called up. I'm sorry it took, a month or
It's
so
all good.
to make it happen. We this summer for Reno and I has just been, or I would say this last quarter has been crazy busy between our schedules. So we no longer even have a set time. First quarter of the year we had set times that we did the podcast each week, and recently it's just been mix and match based on schedules. But man, I enjoyed this talk. I enjoyed this episode. I think life is good. I think, you've saved your own life. you're helping save other people's lives, right? Like you are a pillar in your own family and leading, them. I'm excited to see you grow as a person, you grow as a soldier, and you grow as a father.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. I appreciate it. And again, everyone that's listening, we can't do it without our presenting partners, Summit Rejuvenation Clinics. Again, get your free blood work and consultation, which leads to blood work, but use Jeremy's links below. And also GreenUp Wealth, the go-to financial wellness partner of the podcast. But again, thank you so much.
No
Awesome,
problem.
guys. Listeners, I hope you have a great day. Be safe and make it a good one. We'll talk to you guys soon.
So
Bye.